President Trump saying he's prepared to punish countries that challenge the reserve currency status of the US dollar.
If we lost the world standard dollar, that would be like losing a war, a major world war. We would not be the same country any longer. You ever hear the expression, dollar is king? The dollar is king. We're going to keep it that way.
Joining us now to discuss, Thierry Wizman of Macquarie. Terry, good morning.
Good morning, John.
Is the dollar still king?
No, the dollar is not still king. There's plenty of indications out there that there is de-dollarization taking place. It's happening slowly, and I think that's why maybe some traders don't pay too much attention to it or try to be in denial effectively. If it's not staring you in the face and it's a slow drip, why talk about it? But the slow drip continues. The reserve allocators are allocating less of their balances to the dollar. We're seeing banks in China, for example, that lend money to some of their emerging market clients, asking them to borrow in renminbi and not in dollars. The Federal Reserve did a study about this. We are seeing clearly a movement away from the dollar by private investors and semi-official investors, including pension funds, right? They want to effectively diversify. I think these are all aspects of a de-dollarization that's taking place slowly. I think the etiology of this, the origin of this, is the view that, first of all, the U.S. is disengaging from the rest of the world, and the Bretton Woods II arrangement, implicit as it may be, it no longer applies as strongly as it did prior to this administration. And of course, there's plenty of policy uncertainty. The idea that the U.S. is exceptional because we have something called ordered liberty, I think is breaking down. We may have managed chaos, but we certainly don't have ordered liberty anymore, and I think that's an aspect of the de-dollarization story as well, or at least the willingness on the part of many investors to look at the dollar differently and in a different light.
I think you just spoke about the US dollar for the best part of 2 or 3 minutes and didn't mention rates once. How divorced is this story from rate differentials?
It's never going to be completely separated from rate differentials, but I suspect that you have to separate the cyclical aspect of wanting to hold a dollar and the rate-based reasons for wanting to hold a dollar from the structural story. And it may be the case that and it may not matter, of course, because the Fed may be cutting rates, in which case it would give a kick to the de-dollarization story, to the lack of willingness to hold dollars. So we may get an amplification from the rate story in the next few months of the willingness on the part of investors to de-dollarize or move away from the dollar. But if the Fed were raising rates, yeah, to some extent it would be important in preserving the value of the dollar, but it's not going to stand in the way of that structural long-term trend.
Not to get too textualist, but what does de-dollarization mean? Does it mean not transacting in dollars? Does it mean hedging dollar risk, which is what a lot of people say is actually happening? Yeah,
it's more than one thing. In fact, I'd say it's maybe up to 5 things. When you look at what the Bank for International Settlements does, when they look at the use of the dollar, they look at it against, on 5 dimensions. They look at how much financing is taking place in dollars around the world by international borrowers, cross-border borrowers. They look at how much of international trade is denominated in dollars, is invoiced in dollars. They look at reserve managers. How much are they holding in dollars as a percentage of their reserves? So, and there's probably about 2 or 3 other qualifications or dimensions by which they look at that. Most of them have, again, been doing this slow drip for the last few years, right? There's been a somewhat slow decline. And I suspect that we're going to have other central banks around the world actually want to have more prominent use of their currencies. So this might amplify the story too, right? We have Christine Lagarde at the ECB saying that she wants to give more prominence to the euro in international transactions, in global trade. So, and she sees her window of opportunity just at a time when the U.S. is disengaging. So you might have not just a push from this administration, but you may have a pull from other central banks, and I think what the BRICS are saying is part of that pull as well.
Is this story overplayed, given the fact that the Euro region isn't exactly a bastion of political calmness or sort of fiscal order right now? Yeah, so it depends on this whole story of European integration, I suppose, right? If Europe can start to begin to look a little bit more like the U.S. did, say, a few years ago, where they are issuing bonds jointly, where they are promulgating regulation jointly and uniformly and coherently, where they adopt a common foreign policy. I mean, all of the things that might make the European Union look more like what we idealize the U.S. to be will help, I believe, the internationalization of the euro.
What will reverse this trend?
Well, I mean, let's go back to the origins of the problem, right? If you believe that policy uncertainty emitting from the U.S. is one of the reasons, well, we have to have a reversal of policy uncertainty. We have to move away from managed chaos and maybe back to ordered liberty.
You actually need to see real trade deals.
Well, I don't think so, actually. I think if all of this tariff situation were to go away, and I don't think it will because we're going to see another round of strategic tariffs, there's other reasons why there's policy uncertainty emanating from the U.S., right? Are we going to get our fiscal house in order, for one thing? Are we going to see the kind of social tensions, rather, that we have seen in the last few years? I mean, I think all these things play a role into how foreign investors perceive the U.S.